Aren't you guys glad that you're on this training today? Because I'm going to provide you all a proposal template, as I promised, and you probably saw that in the description, as well as a capabilities template. You can use that proposal template pretty much for any federal proposal that you have. So, and of course, if you need assistance. So again, I'm Curtis Mohler, the Ptac Regional Program Manager. So I'll tell you a little bit about the UTSA and the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Here's who the Ptac is. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center is a specialty center of the UTSA IED, assisting small and large businesses with no-cost advising, training, networking with local, state, federal, and DoD agencies in support of large-scale expansion. The UTSA Ptac is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with DLA. Basically, we have 10 centers, other centers that are part of the UTSA IED, or Institute for Economic Development. I'm one of those program managers. So if there's something today where we don't cover that service, let us know, and we'll provide that to my fellow agencies and also fellow centers here at the IED. So let us know how we can assist you. Of course, our goal, as you can see, is we don't help pre-startups or people wanting to go into business, but people who are already in business looking to do local, state, federal, and government contracting. And we want to help expand you. 20-year Navy veteran. I won't go too much into that. Just got a lot of management experiences, retired in 2006. And prior to that, from 2006 to 2011, I was a senior defense management consultant for the Sabre Diamond program for Navistar Defense, managing 27 affiliates, and learned a lot of experience from that. Also from there, I joined UTSA in 2011, where I was the Veterans Assistance Service Program manager of that grant, and worked with that grant as well as the Chase Business Development Program. And of course, the last 6 years, or actually 7 years, excuse me, I've been with the Ptac, and the last 2 years, I've been the program manager. Our mission statement to the Ptac is to provide our clients with a wide range of training opportunities and resources. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And to successfully compete with contracts with local, state, federal, and DoD agencies. So our whole goal, our whole mission statement is to provide these resources back to you free and help you expand your business. Here's our servicing area. Of course, we do cover Austin area, Georgetown, that whole area up in Austin. We do cover that area, and we just added Bell County, which is Fort Hood, so we're going to be covering that area. So if you're not in that area, you can go to the link below, and we can get a Ptac in your area. And also, too, if you are in the area, reach out to us. You can actually put your information in the chat box, or make sure we assign an advisor to you. Here's our Ptac staff, Mr. Tony Pala, Paul Herrera, Tommy Baker, and Linda Georgie. They do a wonderful job. You know, your people always do it, and I'm so blessed to have a great staff. Okay, let's talk about the different phases of this solicitation process, and talk about the contracting process for acquisitions. There's a couple phases as we start preparing our proposals. So we want to know the different types of contract vehicles first, because they're not all going to be RFPs. There are going to be what we call sources sought, a request for information, or RFIs. There's going to be requests for quotes, RFQs, and then of course you have the RFP, which is a request for proposal. So that is the whole solicitation process. You know, a lot of times we just think it's the RFP, but if you're waiting for the RFP, that you're waiting too late. And here's basically the process this is going to go through. First, you're going to have the pre-solicitation phase. That's when it first initiates and hits beta.sam.gov. And then, of course, you're going to have the solicitation award phase. That's when you submit your offer on the solicitation to the agency, whether it's local, state, or federal, and they're going to review that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between the two, but one is lowest price technically acceptable, and the other is what they call best value or trade-off. We're going to cover that today because they have a separate training, but basically that's the two continuums you have. If you was to put your arms to the side and say, okay, what's on one side, what's on the other? Lowest price is basically everybody who's technically acceptable to do the bid, and the bid is going to be awarded mainly on price, what they call cost factors. And of course, if someone is found technically acceptable, it's going to go to lowest bidder. But best value or trade-off is going to go to not necessarily the lowest bidder, but to the person that has what they call non-cost factors. And that would be things like certifications, designations, let's say experience, apples to apples contracts, other technical certifications, or how about a new technology in the market that's going to save the government money and reduce the risk. That's what we're talking about when we talk about trade-off. So basically the government's willing to pay more, and not just to look at price. Of course, we have the post-award phase. That's the execution phase. Okay, so let's talk about the solicitation phase. Here you're going to you see something right from beta.sam.gov, which is going to transition to sam.gov. Remember, it used to be FedBizOps or Federal Business Opportunities. And if you go to the notice type, you're going to see right here the actual process itself. You could be dealing with a special notice, a one-time notice that's going to be given on a particular solicitation. Then sources sought, that's going to be the very beginning process. We're going to talk about all these right here. The pre-solicitation, which a lot of people are familiar with, that's when a solicitation hits the streets. And a lot of times you're going to have to answer what they call the interested vendor, where you're going to have to say, yes, yes, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in seeing more information on the particular solicitation moving forward. And that's going to be, once you click on that through beta.sam.gov, that's going to send your profile in beta.sam.gov to the agency, whatever that is, providing solicitation saying, yes, I'm interested. Of course, they'll start updating you. And most likely, they're going to give you information on what they call pre-bid conferences. Many of you probably have attended those. Well, you want to attend those because that's going to tell you about the solicitation and get to know the contractor or the agency, and also they can answer any questions you have. Of course, you see the different types of things, the combined synopsis solicitation. That just means a description, the awards notice, and of course, if there's any justification. And this is basically kind of like a summarization of the award process. You can search all these things in beta.sam.gov under the contracting opportunities. And that's all I did. It has notice types there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the pre-solicitation phase. Agencies perform what they call acquisition planning, and they do what they call market research. Obviously, they do that in the various ways, and it's covered in Article Part 16 as well as Part 10. And what that means is they're going to use various methods to research in the commercial market, products and services and prices, and then try to apply those prices to the government market. In other words, what's in the commercial market, they're going to make an evaluation saying, okay, in the commercial market, what would be the average cost of this item, and what would be reasonable when we receive a bid from an offer? And now, obviously, usually with government prices, you're buying in bulk, so the prices are usually a little bit less because the government likes what they call incentive pricing or discount pricing. But acquisition planning is a process that the contractors, the COTRs and the CORs are going to be used on a regular basis to find out what are the best things out there. How can we save money, and how can we reduce risk in support of this particular acquisition or solicitation they're going to propose to provide either a product or service. So that's their phase or their process. Well, how do you guys come into play? Well, you guys come into play providing them capability presentations we're going to be talking a little bit about. And that's one of the templates I'm going to give you. That's one of the ways they're going to be able to do their market research. When you fill out that preferred vendor thing, that's what they're talking about. Is that's one of the ways they find out, hey, who's out there that can provide this? But another way, of course, is through the solicitation or the offer that you're going to give them. Okay, what happens in the phase? The government agencies often publish a pre-solicitation to measure the contractor's interest. That's the interested vendor, determine who's qualified, and look for different solutions. I talked about that. Now, in the sources sought phase, in the RFI phase, especially in the sources sought, this is when you can do those particular things where they may be looking for different types of solutions to different technology, or it could be a special notice bid to do that. Sometimes in pre-solicitations, they're not interested in that. They're just interested in you answering the actual solicitation itself. Very important. But oftentimes they will give you what they call a sources sought. Well, there's a couple of purposes of that. We're going to be covering that. So this is what we're starting at. And as you can see right here, this pre-solicitation phase, sources sought, invitation for bid, very important for you in RFI, because this is the early part where you want to get involved in first. Don't just wait for the RFP, because by that time it's too late. Because what you're doing is you have no relationship with the contracting agency or the contractor. There's other people have used sources sought and IFBs and RFIs, and you haven't. So you're a little bit behind the power curve there. So now let's talk a little about sources sought. What's the purpose of it? It invites vendors such as yourself to join the bidding processes and provide a quote to government services and goods and services. It's an informal request and it's easy to provide with little notice. Let me tell you a little about a sources sought. Normally it's going to come out, it's going to be very basic. And what the sources sought is trying to determine, and I want to add this to this, is should this be a set aside? Well, a lot of times, people that get an RFP, they say, well, how come this wasn't a minority-owned set-aside or a service-disabled set-aside or a woman-owned set-aside? Well, guess who controls that? You all control that. You all control that part of the process. And the sources sought is that beginning part of the process where you can actually, within your answer of the sources sought, start to tailor that or gear that to your products and services. And if they ask you questions on that, here's where your chance to say, hey, look, we really think there should be a woman-owned set-aside or things like that. And so as you answer these things in the sources sought and answer those questions, because they're going to be a list of questions, what the agency is trying to determine is not just pricing, not just if you can do it, but should this be a set-aside, yes or no? Remember, the RFP hasn't come out yet. But here's your chance to start providing input into the final solicitation when it's written. So you want to be in the beginning part of that. Well, you have an opportunity to do that. It's very important that you voice yourself in that. Okay, next is the request for information, or what we call an RFI. Basically, what at this point, this is after the sources sought, where you've answered the basic questions about who can do these things, and maybe there's some questions in there on particular things on why this should be a particular set aside. There may be other questions asked in the source. Well, now it's the RFI, and basically at this point, what they're asking is the contracting agency, since you're the experts, asking, what is this? So it's usually a detailed thing in shaping the information or the description of what's required in it. And that comes from you all. You all are the experts. So this is very important too, where you can start shaping the actual solicitation so that you can actually win this bid. But if you don't answer these things, then of course you're only hurting yourself. So it's very important. I just want to really encourage you to do that. And it's going to ask you different things about what is this? What's this process? What does it do? And so you're going to help shape that. And then, of course, as you can see, the actual importance of the solicitation process. Take the opportunity to apply this, the pre-solicitation, RFIs, sources sought. This is the best time to work to shaping those offers. And then provide alternatives. A lot of times this is where you can provide, whether maybe it's a new technology that would lower the risk, or a new product, or maybe the user life is better, which a particular thing, or there's a service aspect to it. You see that a lot in cyber IT and many of the services on the different areas, improvement in technology, ComSec radios, and other things too as well. What about manufacturing? There's a key right there. And then look for ways to demonstrate these things, and not only at the pre-solicitation phases, but going to conferences and industry days to gather the information to provide to them. Then, of course, then it goes on to phase two in the requirements section. So let's see a little bit what you're going to see, and start talking about the different letter codes. We have Nix Codes, and then PSC codes. We know that, North American Industry Classification Codes, or Nix Codes. And then we have product service codes, PSC codes, and FSC codes, which are federal supply codes. So these codes are very important. We don't want to ignore these, and they mean things as well in the solicitation phase. So start to know your product service codes, keywords A through Z, as well as your federal supply codes, which will always be 4-digit numbers. You will have that in your SAMS profile. When you see this IDIQ, first you have invitation for bids. This is when the agency gives you an invitation directly for a particular specific item that they're going to need. They're going to send that directly to a group of vendors they think they can do and provide those things. Then we had IDIQs. Of course, there's usually your 5-year contracts. Sometimes they're in the form of BPAs, but indefinite delivery. indefinite quantity, basically they could be up for a certain range amount, let's say $5 million. But of course, the money is not, you don't gain any revenue until purchase orders are made on that IDIQ over the life of that contract, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. That's what they call IDIQ contracts. And of course, then you have requests for proposals, the RFPs. We talked a little about that. That's when you're actually answering this solicitation. You're doing the full 9 yards on that. Usually it's through the uniform contract, which we're going to be talking about. Of course, proposals vary, local, state, or federal, but usually they're going to follow a uniform contract, which is covered by the FAR 15104 and Part 15 Tech 2. We're going to be covering that. And of course, requests for quotes, which is going to be signified by letter U, and of course, the RFPs by R, and then the IDIQs by D, and of course, information from bid by letter B. Of course, let's look at this. A lot of times you see this PIID, and what that is that's a subpart number that helps identify what the solicitation or the award's going to be. You're going to see this on usaspending.gov. In other words, if you went to USA Spending, did an advanced search, and you were searching an award, what you're going to find out is there's an award ID called the Procurement Instrument Identifiers. And it's going to have the particular award ID that it's on. And within that award ID, you're going to see lots of things in that information. And each of those letter codes means something. And this is a good way to look up the type of solicitations you want to bid on, or past awards, or maybe somebody's got an awarded contract and you want to subcontract in support of the prime. Well, you have to find that award through usaspending.gov or a Federal Procurement Data System or beta.sam.gov. So let's kind of look at the different types of letter awards as it relates to when you're looking at award ID from a contract. And A, within the actual PID numbers, blank purchase agreements. B is invitation for bids. C is contracts, all types except in definite delivery different quantity. D is the IDIQ, as well as the Federal Supply Schedules, also known as Gsa Schedule. So anytime you see an FFS score, that's Federal Supply Schedules. That's another fancy word for Gsa Schedules. Of course, that is an IDIQ contract. That's 5 years. That can be renewed up to 4 years, up to 20 years, as well as the GWAC and multi-agency contracts. That would be Gsa Schedules. Don't forget, Gsa Schedules is nothing but a contract too as well. You submit an offer and you get the IDIQ mass contract. Of course, F is blank purchase agreements. We talked about blank purchase agreements. That's 5 years, 1 year guarantee, 4 option years. And then, of course, that's usually what you find on IDIQ contracts. So if you see an F, that's basically delivery orders and task orders. And of course, G is basic ordering agreements. H, agreements, including basic agreements, loan agreements. L, leasing agreements. And then contracts of all types, M&N. And then P for purchase orders. And Q for quotes. We talked about that, the RFQ. How much is it? Let me stop and talk a little bit about that. We talked about RFI. What is it? And again, we're going to be going a little bit more, but I'll give you a precursor of this. Keep in mind that after the RFI comes the RFQ, request for quote. So after they determine maybe the set aside of it, you answer the basic questions, who can do it, and then why the particular pool would be good in using you, and then you get the RFI, or what is it, the actual service and product you're going to provide. Then comes pricing it. And the agencies and the contractors are going to reach out to you for that particular information too. How much is it? You determine the value. So if you don't answer those RFQs, then you're really hurting yourself as far as giving your input on what you think that things should be priced. And as you can see, then you can start gearing that towards fitting your budget and what you think the actual thing is of value to you. And then maybe you can also gear them. Remember we talked about LPT and trade-off. Instead of just going to the lowest bidder, maybe shifting it towards best value, which you're going to get more margin off of best value and trade-off. So very important. And of course, the final thing we see, letter Y here. Okay, so let's look at a solicitation of what we think it's going to look like when we see this. Of course, you can recognize this when it goes to beta.sam.gov. You go to Contracting Opportunities, you're going to see the notice right here. So let's see how that applies. So you can see the first part is the agency's ID. and the actual number right there, solicitation number. This is always the year that it's going to come out, and that's important too. If you're going to usaspending.gov and you want to capture some data, make sure that doesn't say 18, 17, 16, because you're looking at old data. You know, if you're looking to look at past awards, you don't want to go past 2 years because prices have changed so much, especially right now when inflation is running right now at 4.2%, scheduled to be about 5.8 next year. So hopefully that'll level off. And then R, that's the type of contract. So we know it's the proposal itself, and of course the sequential number. So always look for these things. These are very important. It's not just a number they're assigning. That's information directed at you so that you know what to do. Of course, we already talked about the importance of the request for quote, the RFQ, the code, a process which invites interested vendors, you, to join the bidding process and provide price quotes on government organization goods and services. Very important. You can help price that final RFP through your input. What would you like the pricing to be? So important. And then the request for proposal. You know, you see how these go hand in hand, because a lot of times when people get this, like, my goodness, this is an LPTA. I can't bid on that, man. They're telling me I can only take a 6 to 8% margin on this. Well, that's because in the RFQ, a whole bunch of bidders have already answered and set the price for the agency. So when the agency says, hey, look, this is the data we got. The data we received is that this is the baseline commercial price. And so, that's usually when you see that in the final RFP. A lot of changes in the micro purchase threshold which apply to you. So let's talk a little bit about the micro purchase threshold. Like, well, how does this apply to contracts? Very important. In 2018, the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDA, changed the micro purchase order, the MPT, from 3,500 to 10,000, and that's for DoD and commercial purchases. They equal them out. Why is that important to you? Because normally not everything goes on solicitation. A lot of times we have clients that say, isn't there something out there where we don't something opportunities to make money without actually bidding on contracts? And there is. Anything below $10,000 doesn't have to go on solicitation. And this is where you can reach out to agencies, and you can actually, through capability presentations, one of the things you want to say at the end of your presentation is, I know there's no opportunities today under 541-611 or the things I provide as far as the solicitation. However, is there anything under IT? Is there anything under medical? Is there anything under project management that's below the micro purchase threshold 10,000 that I can help take care of today? Well, that doesn't have to go on contract. Basically, they just provide you a PO, and if you have a setup with the POS system, and it can receive government credit cards, 10,000 below, they can purchase with you right there if on the opportunity. So at the end of the day, money is money. So if it's $10,000 and below, you want to fit that in a presentation. That does not have to go on contract. And so that's been raised from 10,000 to from 3,500. So basically the simple acquisition threshold is from 10,000 all the way to 250. So that's the range. Like, well, what is that range? Well, that's very important if you're a small business, because that's the set aside range where big businesses cannot compete. They can compete on contracts above 250, but between 10,000 and 250, this is called the simplified acquisition threshold, where only it's set aside for small business. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that, looking for contracts within beta.sam.gov between 10,000 and 250, but also too, don't forget that micro purchase threshold. 10,000 here, 10,000 there adds up. And so don't just sit in a cubicle all day long and do solicitations. Find other avenues through the micro purchase threshold, 10,000 less, to gain revenue. So very important. And of course, the FAR 19 covers the set aside, or for small businesses that relates to set asides as it relates to the different contracts. We already know that 8A is up to $6 million in set aside contracts. Of course, there's set aside contracts through the CVE, where if you have the CVE certification, either service disabled or veteran owned, that's set aside through the VA. But each of those agencies, of course, the 8A, you have to have the 8A certification, but the VA can come out and it doesn't necessarily have to be a set aside using the CV certification. It's going to say that in an actual solicitation itself. In other words, the solicitation is going to say something like, this solicitation is for service disabled veterans or veterans that are not only enrolled and registered in SANS, but also have the CVE certification. So notice that we get a lot of questions on that where, man, I see a solicitation that's veteran related from the VA. Well, just because it's from the VA doesn't mean it's a set aside. That's why you want to actually look in the beta.samgov solicitation. It's going to let you know, yes, you have to be registered in SANS, and yes, you're going to need the actual, the certification too as well. Okay, what about subcontract opportunities? We see right here, if you're a prime contractor, you all know that you're going to have to do a subcontracting plan. This is going to vary from the solicitations. But if it's above, a floor of 750, then basically, if it's 750,000 or greater, then you have to develop a subcontracting plan, and then that's how to get small business and people that are not the prime contractors to get past performance and give them an opportunity through your subcontracting plan by hiring them as subcontractor. This is how agencies fulfill the socioeconomic things that we're looking for, and also to fulfill the requirements for goals. Well, that's also going to be a requirement for you as a prime contractor. So always remember that within the actual solicitation itself, you're going to see the subcontracting plan. This is one of the first things you should ask when you do the pre-bid. Is a lot of times is, hey, is hiring subcontractors required? Now we know local, state, and federal bids are all different, but if it's federal, we know that you have to basically make a subcontracting plan. Of course, we see the type of solicitations here, and what we want to cover now is the uniform contract. Very important that you learn this, and I want to encourage everybody to go today. And if you go to the FAR 15, you're going to see table 1 and table 2. And a lot of times people ask me, Curtis, can you just tell me in the basic solicitation what I'm supposed to be answering? This is what the agencies use. And for the most part, they're going to use what they call a uniform contract. And we talked a little bit about that, and it's going to be going through these particular things right here. So as you're answering the solicitation, this FAR 15204 is going to answer all these questions right here. It's going to answer as you're going through here the different sections. So A is going to be talking about the solicitation contract form, and B is going to be talking about the supply and services and price and costs. C is going to be the description of work. And in all these sections, what you're doing is, if you remember in the solicitation, it asks you specific questions as it relates to these things. So always remember, you're answering the uniform contract letter by letter. Is there any packaging and marking involved? How about inspection and acceptance? What about deliveries on performance? What if there's a lead time, let's say 6 days or less, and who's going to be paying the FOB or freight on board, or and figuring that cost? Well, that's how you'd figure that those things in. What's going to be provided, what's going to be the cost. Now, letter C is the statement of work, which is very important, or the SOW, which really is your deliverables. And that actually can stand alone as a contract. I mean, so basically, what are your deliverables on the actual contract itself? List of attachments, if there's any, contracting clauses, and then representation certifications of officers. Is there any designation certifications or anything else involved in there? And of course, instructions, conditions, notices for respondents, and then evaluation factors for awards. This is key that everybody ignores, is we want to know, what are the factors? How am I going to be graded? Of course, local, state, and federal are all different. It's going to break down to different percentages. Some is past performance, some is technical expertise, some pricing has more weight. And it was what they call that in the contract world was weighted value. Maybe pricing is going to rule the day, or cost factors, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to be what we talked about is apples to apples contract, technical experience, designations. Have you done those things before? So maybe those things you want to kind of look at. And of course, the sections of the solicitation itself, information to officers, quotes, supply and services. We kind of talked about that. Highlighted in red are some very important things. Of course, they're all important, but the things highlighted in red are very important as it relates to the actual solicitation itself. L, proposal preparation instructions is other. Obviously, this is the meat and potatoes of it. These are the specific things you're going to have to answer in the solicitation. We actually teach a class on that. I teach, it's called Building a Proposal, Submitting an Offer. We just taught it last month. And basically, I take you through all the processes from the beginning to the end on how to get the data, extract the data, the template, things, how to figure your pricing, and the different aspects as far as answering two scenarios. And L is very important because this is where we're answering those things according to the uniform contract. Will there be any attachments? Of course, a lot of times there's attachments and things that we have to complete that's required. Statement of work. This is basically how it's going to be done. When you're filling out a solicitation, it's not all future. Most of the time in a solicitation, it's always as if you want it and then how you're going to do it. The SOW covers past tense. It's the project side of it. So just think of your SOW as them asking you, okay, you said you could do it in these right here. Show us how you're going to do it. What's the timetable? Who's going to be involved? What is the lead times? Who are you going to bring in? What's the technical expertise? When is it going to happen? What's the time frame? And that's called scheduling. The actual schedule or deliverables of what you're going to do. And then, of course, what we have here is we have the actual proposal development operations. I developed this right here. So let's say, when you're going to be provided these slides, and I'm going to give you a proposal template you can use, and hopefully that's going to be helpful to you. But let's say you're on the road, and I would encourage you to snapshot this with your phone. I come up with this a system that I've used that really be helpful. If you used to think about proposal process, what would be the process? When you really think about it, you're assessing business intelligence, right? You're sending people out to do capabilities presentations, find out what the latest things are out there, gaining intelligence so you can bid on things. And that could be through presentations, that could be through solicitations. You're gaining some type of intelligence, word of mouth. And then you're marketing those products and services, right? As far as the development operation process and the actual proposal. And then you're capturing those assets. In other words, once we market, we do presentations, and we get to be preferred vendors, and we've answered the sources sought, the RFIs, RFQs. That's the marketing part. Remember, that's that research side where we're answering things, we're marketing, we're gaining intelligence. Now we're sending the offer, we're ready to capture those assets. And we're giving that offer to the agency, whether in person, through the project team, or other. And then we're preparing for the proposal or the offer itself. And then afterwards, it's the negotiation phase. Once we've submitted the offer, and then we're closing the offer. So once we submit the offer, we're submitting electronically, which is our close, all our paperwork, or maybe it's in person. We're actually offering those things in person. And of course, then we're executing what's already been done if we win it, and then we're following up. So this is very important. This is really the processes of submitting it. We looked at all the contract vehicles from start to finish, sources sought, then the RFI, then the RFQ, then the RFP. And we looked at what those meant, how to look at them in beta.sam.gov. And then this is very important too. And then what about this next step? We're like, well, Curtis, what do I do now? Well, if you used to look at your company, it's going to kind of look like this. You're either going to generate, obviously, information through presentations or a solicitation, and that's going to go in the form of a sit rep or information you're going to pass up to the owner. You is going to assess the data, do the projections and the cost and margin right here, and then assess the data, and then interpret the data in as far as the information process. And of course, then it's going to come down to develop the solicitation and then provide either in person through an offer letter, which we teach in the build proposal class, or obviously through online, through solicitations, through beta.sam.gov. And of course, it's going to go out through the capture team to deliver the proposal, negotiate, and then close. So that's the process right there, and that's always going to remain the same. Doesn't matter, local, state, or federal. Don't be caught up in what you do or local, state, or federal. There's going to be some process similar to this. You're going to have to assess the data that is coming in and then interpret the data and then extract that data to determine, should I bid on this? Kind of that bid and no bid process we teach in the other classes. So I want to encourage you to, Tyra will be providing our information. Of course, I'll be talking about it to attend our classes. Well, let's shift a little bit. I know Tyra wanted me to cover the contracting trends. This is what we see so far out there. We see a lot of restricting companies to the following areas. Transportation logistics is very big, goods and services. This is really trending right now, and that it's oil and gas pipeline, long haul trucking for goods and services. You know, there's a supply chain shortage right now, so that's very high in demand. So we're seeing a lot of clients shift to that. Of course, PPE and is always in demand with the variant and everything. So here you see the main Nix and PSC codes are really trending on the medical side, and that has to do with you know, of course, different types of PPE and also hazmat cleaning. We talked about the janitorial chemicals. That's really trending with how to clean up these things, how to keep people safe. So a lot to do with the COVID side. How about remote IT web hosting? You know, we're all remote now, and so there's less in person. So things have been focused more on the IT side as far as going remote. Cybersecurity, assessment, detection, fraud, and ComSec telecommunications, big. National defense, cybersecurity, really big, really trending. Of course, UTSA has been at the forefront of all those things. And then armed security, patrol guard, and services. With the increasing crime, especially personal services, armed guard and security, this has been really big. Of course, new construction has been very steady. There's one thing through COVID-19 that hasn't changed is that new construction, especially in the Austin and San Antonio area, has not really fell off at all. So if you're in construction, it's a great time to be in construction at all levels, whether it's general construction, as a contractor, or design and build. What are some things that are important to you? Well, some of the things that's important to you is your Nix and PSC codes. You know, your Nix and PSC codes are basically how you identify and speak to the government. So you want to make sure you identify those, and of course, it's Ptac going to assist you with that. And that's basically, I guess you could say, putting it in the government's language on the services and products you provide. Of course, the capabilities presentation, you need to have a good marketing capability brief. You know, we're going to provide you a template for that after this presentation. We normally don't do that, but we're going to do that so it can assist you. And then leveraging and marketing your current certifications. So if you have local, city, or states, and also federal certifications, you want to market that through your capability presentations. So it's not just getting certifications, you want to leverage those certifications by marketing them. Of course, being in SAM, System Award Management, you know, in System Award Management, your local certifications and non-federal certifications are in there. So they do look at your SAM registration and profile, even for local and state things, because they want to know, hey, look, you've gone through some sort of process. Of course, you have to be in SAMs to be eligible for federal opportunities. How about your SBA profile? Consider your marketing capability and your SBA profile the same thing. Your SBA profile is your electronic marketing capability of LiveWire to the whole world. So basically, you want to keep that updated too as well. These two should match as well as your website. They should be saying two separate things. Of course, your government pricing sheet. Having a pricing matrix, you know, make sure that you have incentive pricing. Using tier level pricing, meaning you have more than one pricing for more than one thing. You know, don't just give the agency one price, because, you know, what if, you know, the agency wants more prices and demands, hey, look, give us 3 levels of pricing. If I use you one time, multiple times, or on a contract, obviously the more they use you, the less your prices should be. And that's what we call incentive pricing. How about getting on a Gsa schedule? Real popular right now. Because Gsa schedules, you can sell 24 hours a day through a menu board like Amazon.com. Very important. The Ptac can assist you across the nation. We've probably helped over 100 people this year with Gsa schedules. So something we really can help you with. Here's the top Nix codes, FY 19 and 20. You can see trending. You can see the things we talked about. You see a lot of IT right here, the 541 500 series. You see a lot of them right there, right? Computer systems design support, technical consulting, other administrative services, all these things. Very, very important that you kind of look at these Nix codes, look at engineering services, professional, technical, and other professional services, very big right now. How about pharmaceutical? Who would think that? Of course, with COVID, that's really increasing. And look at this right here, 541 519 is really trending big time on the IT side. If you look down here, project management, 541 611 is big. Of course, your computer systems design support. And of course, we already talked about the medical side of it, the PPE equipment, manufacturing of those things, as well as other electronic surgical supplies that we mentioned too as well. So these are the top Nix codes right here. Of course, we're going to be providing the slide presentation. Other things that are important to your business, CPARS evaluation. This is not everybody's going to get a CPARS annual evaluation on a federal contract, but CPARS are very important. We have a class on that. That's how you get annually evaluated on a 1 to 5 scale when you're in the middle of a contract. Not only is it used on Gsa schedules, but they're starting to look more on your CPARS evaluation to determine if you have shown a propensity to already do good on a current contract and on a future contract. Of course, you always want to take a internal SWOT, an assessment of your business. Do your appropriate market research. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats out there? Know your procurement opportunities. Of course, know your competition. You can do that through the dynamic search. And of course, team when you can, not joint venture, team. That's usually when the teaming agreement is if you have a one-time opportunity on thing, or maybe two. It's not two companies becoming one, but signing a teaming agreement to equally join on a contract and share assets and different things on the contract to help win that contract. Of course, time management. How are you managing your time? Honestly, remember we talked about the self-assessment. How are you managing your time? Here's a little bit about the Ptac services. This is what we'll provide. So what can you expect from the Ptac as you come through here? If you come to any Ptac, it'll be pretty much this process right here. The first thing we're going to do is determine your suitability for contracting. Do you have something that the government would buy? Remember, we talked about that. That's what Ptacs do. We don't have what pre-startups. We can refer you to other agencies for that. But people that are already in business, we're going to determine your suitability for local, state, and federal government contracting, and then apply a specific solution or customized solution to your business. Basically asking you what are your goals, where you want to go, and then making an achievable agenda how to get there. How about a business technical review? Reviewing your business, see where you're at, where you want to go. Remember, Ptacs can help small and large businesses under our grant, not just small businesses. So if you're a big business out there, we can assist. We're going to teach you how to secure necessary registration certifications, Hub Zone, 8A, Economic Woman Disadvantaged Business, or WSB or WASB. How about your hub? We can review your paperwork for that. Historically utilized business, good for 4 years, free to apply for woman-owned, minority-owned businesses, and also service disabled, about 20%, according to HB 194. Then help you leverage those through presentations and capability briefs. How about proposals? Yeah, as I mentioned today, we can assist you with proposal preparation at all levels. We can also help you with Gsa schedules. We can also teach you federal procurement systems training. We can teach you how to use beta.sam.gov and how to target usaspending.gov, federal procurement data system. Your federal procurement data system is going to contain that goaling report that's very important to you of the top 100 contractors and what was sold in your set aside range, whether it's WSB, economic disadvantage, 8A, small disadvantaged business, veteran-owned, service disabled, all the different socioeconomic categories. That's the important federal procurement data system. Now, I already talked about the capability statement. It's very important that you have one and you develop one so you can do presentations and promulgate your services as part of that market research and the solicitation process. There's also a requirement for CMC level 1 or level 3. intramural compliance. The rule now is there's no cost for that. The Ptac can assist you with that. According to the DFARS 252 and the NIST, you have to be intramural compliance, either 1 or 3. We can share templates and actually give you guidance on that, as well as telling you the requirements that by 2025, you have to be CMMC either level 1 or level 3, and you want to check the DFARS 252 and the NIST, and you particularly see what would apply 1 or 3. That will be at a cost of your business. You do have to get a third-party vendor to do that, but we can tell you about the requirements for that. Of course, we have strategies, and we have our own 7-phase system we can use to help you. Here's our Ptac website. You want to go to this website, and there's a training tab here, and we have all our trainings. They're all free to you. We only have about 6 trainings left in the year, and then we start a new year. And we will probably finish with about 54 trainings. We've already completed about 43 of them. We've probably done about 80 to 100 trainings, the Ptac here in San Antonio, local, state, federal, and national, to assist our clients, resource partners. And we built a lot of relationships and brought people to you. It's not just in-house technical training. We're bringing the agencies to you, and so that you can find out information on how to buy for them, and you can connect with them. So check that out. That's really important for you. Of course, our Ptac Facebook page, make sure you like us on Facebook. Daily, we are posting local, state, federal, DoD bids, other important information on there. Please check it out. Make sure you check out the Facebook page. Make sure you like us. And of course, our service videos on there. Very important to check out the Ptac Facebook page and get involved and follow that. It's going to be very important for you for opportunities like this. But we have to see the opportunities first. And of course, you can contact us. There's our main number right here. We are remote. We're working remote just out of safety. We're at the downtown campus, but we're obviously working right now remote to serve you. So at this time, hopefully I did a good job in trying to end in time and maybe allow 5 minutes for thing. Tyra, I don't know if I did a good job, but I've been watching it. I think I did, but let me know if I did.
Yes, no, you did an outstanding job. Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and like we've been putting in the chat, there's some templates Curtis is going to give me that I will disseminate to you all. He did that especially for this group. So we appreciate Curtis for that. And just make sure your email's in the chat. I'll prompt you all to save the chat here soon, but and I will do the same. So I'll collect your emails. And I didn't see any questions, but I did see some comments. I guess just some feedback in the chat. Yes, Miss Splendor.
I have a question about a couple things.
Okay.
I didn't put him in the chat. I guess you saw that I was unmuted and ready to go. One question I had, you said a joint venture versus teaming. I have a question about that. And then a comment real quick too, because I know you guys used to come to town when, I guess, what was there, Cynthia was there, but that you guys used to come and do presentations like once a quarter. Are you guys going to do that again once we go back in the office with COVID? Have you guys decided yet?
Hey, thank you so much for your question. I'm not sure on Cynthia. I'm not sure who you're referring to. Maybe that's the SBDC, because we're not part of the SBDC, but just the Ptac. So I'm not for sure on that. Yeah, I think maybe. Are you talking about locally in San Antonio or Austin? I'm not for sure. Yeah, due to COVID, ever since, like you said, March of last year, we've been remote. The university is still remote due to safety. Because the restrictions on large groups, we haven't been doing many conferences. Obviously, the things that were scheduled were canceled. So what we did is we shifted everything to hybrid. And we found out, and in most cases, it's more effective because we can actually reach more people, especially me covering 38 counties. And of course, there are also limits that we can do on our travel, both for budgets, not only with the university, but through the agency. So a lot of times we're limited on that, what we can do. But maybe with things opening up, we can kind of look at it. Things are starting to open up a little bit, but then we're starting to put some things on budget, but things are very restricted still. As far as the no, not a problem. That was a great question. We get that all the time. On the joint venture through teaming, a joint venture is very different than a teaming agreement. Joint venture is two companies that are two separate companies becoming one company legally, and then changing their name and sharing obviously resources. Somebody obviously is still going to be the 51%, and it's resources, personnel, labor, time. So they're basically one company, and they're going to be renamed legally. Teaming agreement is two companies that still remain separate, and they will go off their contracts together. So that maybe they see an opportunity out there, a solicitation, and they want to team together on via a teaming agreement, where they lay out roles, and they lay out responsibilities as it relates to that contracting opportunity. They want to team up to do that. And of course, then you have another relationship, which is the prime sub relationship, which is obviously someone's winning it and someone's going to be the sub. So there's just different types of relationships, but the joint venture is illegal, two companies becoming one and renaming. So.
Okay, and I worked for the city, and we had defined it differently. So I think we define joint ventures like you're defining teaming. And the other question I had is, and I put this in the chat, was about set asides, because on city contracts, set aside is kind of like a bad word because we say that we're competitive. Do you guys, with federal contracting, do you see that they actually say this contract is set aside for a minority or a certain kind of business or service disabled veteran?
Yes.
Is that how you're defining? So it actually will say that when we look at it on SAMs or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Set aside for this specific group. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And that's what I meant is that, remember I was mentioning, that's an excellent question for obviously for local, city, county, and states. You don't say set aside, but I was referring to federal solicitations where, yes, in the actual federal solicitation, it's going to have in the actual synopsis and to the right, how it says set aside right there. If it says non-applicable, that means it's basically an open opportunity that anybody can bid. I'll give an example. On the veteran side, it's going to let you know. So a lot of times you see solicitations from, I'm a service disabled veteran myself. We help a lot of veterans, of course, so also too, you have other competitive bids too as well, but I'll just use veteran as an example. The VA may issue an opportunity, or down below on the right, it says set aside NA. So you would think, wow, it's coming from the VA. You would think that'd be a set aside, but it's not. It's just in system award management. Any veteran can bid on that contract. That particular veteran does not have to have the CVE certification to actually bid on that particular contract, which would be a set aside. Of course, when they receive the CVE certification, it's going to say in the actual block down below, this is a veteran set aside, and within the synopsis, it's even going to say this solicitation is for a service disabled veteran who's registered in SAMS and has the CVE certification. So you see there's two requirements, where there's other things issued by the VA where if as long as you're in SAMS as a service disabled veteran, the CVE certification is not required. So it's kind of an open competition to all the veterans out there. You don't have to get the certification according to the FAR 19, which covers set aside. So yeah, you will actually see that in the solicitation, the synopsis, of course, in the actual on the right hand side of the set aside.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
Great. Okay, any other questions that we have from anyone else before we adjourn? This board meeting. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for the invite, and hopefully people have got a lot about the presentation. Of course, I'll be providing this presentation to you, Tyra, as well as the two templates I discussed, so it'll benefit your audience. And thank you so much for the gracious invite. We really enjoyed meeting you and getting knowing to you. And again, thank you for hosting this and taking your time to invite the Ptac.
Awesome. Thank you, Curtis. And we appreciate you so much. Thank everyone for showing up. And yes, just want to give a gentle reminder that please put your email on the chat. If you would like the hard copy and the templates, the proposal and capability statement templates that Curtis is so gracious to share with us. Remember, kind of the rule of thumb we've been doing lately is there's 3 little dots in your chat box. at least on the desktop version. If you click on that and you scroll up, you'll see save chat. So just make sure you do that. And the last session of our series, can you believe it? Before we get off into Halloween festivities, the last session is going to be how to report once you've won the bid. So contract management from A to Z. It's good stuff. Hopefully we'll see you all at 5:30. That's when that session will start. You all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again, Curtis, for your time and expertise. And I'll see you all later.
Have a great day. Thank you so much, Tyra. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.